Hi and welcome to the Malat cookery channel. So on the menu today we're making patty melts. So patty melts are an old school, really traditional recipe in the USA. Very cheap, so really cost effective for a family meal. Easy to do as well, but absolutely delicious. The spice blend from the Malat range that we're going to be using today is American hamburger seasoning. And if you don't have access to the Malat range of products, then you're going to need to replace that half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, some salt and pepper for seasoning, and some dried oregano, about half a teaspoon, and try and grind that in a pestle and mortar if you can to get the best effects from it. As usual, a full list of ingredients will be given at the end of the video, so let's have a look at those ingredients now and anything else we're going to need for today. So our ingredients for today, I've got 750 grams of ground meat. So in here I've got half and half between ground beef or minced beef and ground pork or minced pork. You can use whatever you like, just use ground beef if you want to. Just try and make sure that the fat content is around 20%, just gives it more flavour. Going to be using some olive oil for frying. Got 30 grams of unsalted butter, 15 grams of Malat American hamburger seasoning, or obviously use the ingredients I mentioned earlier if you're not using the Malat spice blend. Got 2 medium white onions which I've peeled and sliced. We need some cheese, so I'm using mature cheddar cheese. At the moment Coastal is my favourite. Tend to go between 2 or 3 brands, but at the moment Coastal definitely my favourite at the moment. A really mature cheddar cheese which gives a nice sort of crunch, but again use whatever cheese you like. I'm just going to be taking some slices of this block, and then a decent loaf. So this is a white bloomer. Just make sure if you're using pre-sliced bread, make sure that the slices are nice and decent, it's not too thin. So the first thing we need to do is prepare our patties or burgers. So with 750 grams of ground meat, there's enough there to do 4 decent sized patties, and obviously that's enough then for 4 adult meals. So all we're going to do is just add our Malat American hamburger seasoning, or the seasoning of your choice, to the meat, and just get your hand in and make sure it's thoroughly mixed in. So this is going to take maybe 3 or 4 minutes to make sure everything is well combined. Okay, so once this is now well combined, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh this and divide it into 4 equal parts. So we've got about 195 grams for each of these portions. The next thing to do is to shape the patty. And the traditional shape of a patty melt is actually an oval, so it's almost like a flattened rugby ball or American football. So you can do that by hand, but I always like to form anything like a burger in a dish. Just gives it a really nice compact shape. So I'm taking what we use for shepherd's pies, so just a pie dish, an oval pie dish. Going to place a piece of food wrap in the centre. So like that. Take our meat mixture, smooth it out the way. Okay, and all I want to do is just press this in and flatten it down nice and evenly until it pushes out onto all the sides. Just like that. And then fold the edge of the cling film in. Just give it one final push down, and then that becomes our patty. Nice and neat, some tension around the edge so that when we actually fry this, there's less risk of it splitting at the edges. So I'm going to do that obviously for all of the 4. Okay, so that's the last one. So we just look at those, forming them in something like a dish. I just wouldn't be able to get them looking that good by forming them by hand. Also, when you use the food wrap, it's already come sealed. This will now go into the fridge for half an hour. I always find it's better to chill ground beef, mince or pork in the fridge for about half an hour before cooking. You just get much better results. So into the fridge for half an hour, and then I'll show you the next step. So the next thing we want to do is caramelize the onions. So I've got a frying pan on a low to medium heat, 4 tablespoons of olive oil and half of the butter that we had, so about 15 grams of butter. Got that up to temperature, and we just add the onions. So these onions are going to take about 10 minutes. So the trick here is to caramelize them, not burn them. If we burn the onion, it's just going to make everything bitter. We want a really rich, sweet taste from these onions. So that's why we do it on a lower than normal heat setting over a longer period of time. So over that 10-minute period, I'm just going to be turning these gently every now and again until they get a really decent dark golden brown colour. So after about 10 minutes, next thing we're going to do is to reserve these caramelised onions in a bowl, keep them warm, and then move on to the next step. Okay, so next thing to do is to fry the patties, the shaped patties. So I've taken the onions out, but this pan still has a lot of flavour from those caramelised onions. So just for the purposes of filming, I'll just do one patty just to show you the process all the way through, just easier for filming that way. So once we've placed the chilled patty into the pan, just leave it now. Leave it for at least 5 minutes. Don't mess around with it, flipping it over. Let it get some decent colour and flavour to the underside of that meat before we even attempt to turn it over. Okay, so once the patty has been frying for about 5 minutes on one side, turn this over. Got that lovely colour, all those flavours. So because I'm using quite a hard cheese, I'm going to add our caramelised onion now to the top. On the cheese, because it will take a little bit of time for this cheese to melt, and what I don't want to do is overcook the patty. If you're using a softer cheese, then you don't have to add the cheese just yet. Just be mindful that you don't want to overcook the patty, but you want the cheese to melt on top. The other things you can do, if you've got a lid that will fit the frying pan you're using, then add the cheese a lot later, just before the patty has actually cooked. So the caramelised onion, then the cheese, place the lid on top, and the steam within the pan will melt the cheese a lot quicker. Or you could even just flash grill the top of the patty with the cheese on under a hot grill, and that will also speed up the melting of the cheese. Okay, so our cheese is just melting perfectly. So I'm just going to reserve that patty onto a plate while we toast the bread. I've taken some of the butter that was left over and just buttered one side of 2 pieces of bread. That side is actually going to go face down in the frying pan. Turn the heat up just slightly. So what we're looking to do here is just to toast that underside of the bread. And again, that bread will also soak up some of the flavour in the pan. So the final step, just return the patty to the pan. Then take a piece of our toasted bread, toasted side down. Add our fantastic patty to the bread. Second toasted piece on the top, and just press that down gently. I'm just going to leave that now for about a minute, and then we're going to serve it. So there you go, you now know what patty melts are if you didn't before. Really cheap to make, absolutely delicious and very easy as well. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching, your support is greatly appreciated.